Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Higher Education and Training says it was not consulted before Higher Education Minister Buti Manamela placed NSFAS under administration, although it later engaged him on the decision. NSFAS is facing a 15 billion rand funding shortfall and ongoing financial management concerns. The Gauteng Division of the High Court has also suspended the appointment of Administrator Professor Hlengani Mathebula and ordered the reinstatement of the NSFAS board pending a judicial review. The developments have deepened uncertainty over how the funding crisis will be resolved and what lies ahead for thousands of students who rely on NSFAS support. Let's pick up the conversation now with Wayne Duvenage, who is the CEO of the organization Undoing Tax Abuse, that is OUTA. Good evening to you, Wayne, and thank you for your time. So which aspects of what the judgment says concerned you the most? I know that in the even prior to this matter fully serving before the court and reaching this point, you had already started raising concerns as early as perhaps April of this year.
Yes, it happened when the interim chairperson, good evening to Lisizwe. So when the interim chairperson resigned in April, we had been saying as far back as late last year that there were a number of vacancies that had come about in the board, and the minister needs to get on with filling those. Our first concern was when Dr. Karen Stander resigned. She had meetings with the minister to express her concerns about the toxicity and the problems that were happening. And if I were him, the minister, I would have made sure she stayed on board, listened to her, because the institution was on the track to dealing with many of the problems that she had inherited, she and the board, by the way. Nonetheless, the judgment really has given credence to exactly what we were saying. The board wasn't in Core 8. It was Core 8. It just needed some of the positions to be filled. The minister had ample time to do so. He chose not to do so. And, this thinking that there's this panacea of fixing these institutions just by placing them under administration is so wrong. What he needs to do is make sure that the oversight board, because this institution, by the way, has been under administration a few times in the last 5 or 6 years. So he was really wrong and remiss in his role as a minister to ensure the board had all its board members in place, that they were dealing with the issues that needed to be dealt with. On top of that, he goes and appoints somebody with very questionable, dubious past. It just does no favors to the institution.
We'll turn to what the court has said about the past of Professor Hlengani Mathebula and its relevance in the appointment that the minister has made. But I want to stay on this point. It's almost counterintuitive, isn't it, Wayne, that a minister wanting to look good and look like the minister who has fixed NSFAS would not fill these positions as they became vacant over the course of last year and coming to a head perhaps with the interim chairperson Mokoena Maluleke's resignation around April this year, and we're told that he had also raised these issues as early as January this year to say, look, there are these resignations, you need to be filling these posts. Now, one of the theories being advanced is that this was all meant to sort of stop the board from appointing the CEO, and that the battle really is about the position of CEO. Is that your understanding of what's at play here, or was the minister simply going for the route of administration, as you say, as the panacea for all the problems?
Yeah, I think the point you're making is a very valid one. You never know 100%, but we believe that was potentially one of the reasons you create the crisis, so that you can put it under administration and prevent the board from making its recommendations and putting forward its person it would like to appoint, which was Wasim Karim as the CEO. So yes, that is probably one of the reasons, and I guess. We've got a history with the minister when it comes to waiting to the 11th hour to do things. So when he came into his position in the middle of last year, the time was coming to an end when these new boards had to be replaced. And I'm talking now on the seaters, CEOs. He left those right until the end, rushed in some board appointments, reappointed some CEOs. And by the way, we're in court with him on a decision he made in that regard in the in-seater board. The EFF are in court with him for a very similar matter, but on 6-seater boards. So there's this history of this minister waiting until it's too late to do what he should have done earlier, and then just create this crisis and make these appointments in a very late stage. And he's done the same here at NSFAS. So this court ruling is a very good ruling. And I must say, we need to congratulate the board members for going down this road, standing their ground and taking him to court, because very often the normal response is, just throw up their hands in the air and don't challenge the minister. This is a very good development by that board, and we're seeing it in other boards and some of the seaters that are standing up to the minister and saying, excuse me, but we need to practice good governance here, and we cannot allow you to behave this way.
Let's lastly then tease out the reasons and the reasoning of the court around the person that the minister chose to appoint as the administrator, Professor Hlengani Mathebula. I recently had occasion to engage him, including on what the Nugent Commission said about him during his time at the South African Revenue Service. And basically, his response was to say that there aren't any damning findings against me, and pretty much saying that all there were observations and perhaps a certain level of criticism that he didn't feel was warranted, and saying that he has gone on to be appointed to other positions post that Nugent report outcome. So what does this leave us with what the court has said about the relevance of that past, given that he has been appointed to other positions post Nugent?
Yeah, so firstly, I think your point is a very valid one in this regard. Whether it was Hlengani or anybody else, the appointment shouldn't have happened. So that's a secondary matter. Now, when it comes to the appointment of the individual, I don't even know if the court needed to go there, because they were dealing with the governance issue. In other words, if the governance issue is fine, are they saying that they shouldn't have appointed him because he's the wrong person? That's a whole different argument. But we are concerned of Hlengani Mathebula's past. Yes, he didn't complete a disciplinary hearing. He chose to resign, and they had a settlement agreement. And he exited. But if you're innocent, stand your ground on the disciplinary hearing against you, so that you don't have this cloud over your head, because we still want to know what might have happened. The Nugent Commission's report, by the way, was quite damning. And so, yes, he may defend himself by saying, I wasn't found guilty of any transgressions, but what would have happened had that hearing continued to its fulfillment? That's what we would like to have known. And I think there are some concerns that came out of the Nugent Commission. So there is a cloud. There is a room to argue that he was probably not the right person to appoint when it comes to fixing, especially, you're trying to fix a damaged organization. You don't need anybody with any baggage to come into that role.
All right, Wayne, thank you for your time this evening. That's Wayne Duvenage, the CEO of the organization Undoing Tax Abuse, that is OUTA.